Good morning and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Giulia, part of the editorial board of Build Up, which is the European portal for energy efficiency in buildings. So just a brief explanation of what is Build Up. Build Up is a collaborative platform in the field of energy efficiency and renewable energy in buildings. It is continuously updated and it represents one of the key sources of information on the topic of energy efficiency and renewable energy. You can register and become a member of the community. In this way, you can also upload your news, events, present case studies, results from projects, and so on. I would like to invite you all to navigate the portal where you can find several sections. One of them is the Learn section. Here you can rewatch videos from past webinars. So at the end of this webinar, the link to the full recording and to the PDF presentations will be made available in this section of the portal. So it is a pleasure to host today's webinar, and I'll leave the floor to Marco, who is going to present the agenda and the speakers for today. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Giulia, and of course, thanks a lot to our colleague from Build Up for hosting us. So I'm Marco Grippa, Program Manager at ECOS, and we welcome you on behalf of ECOS and the HARP Consortium on this webinar. We are going to go through the progress and the advances that we had over the 3 years project HARP, which is the energy label for existing building appliances. If we go to the next slides, I will quickly go through the agenda. So the first speaker is Rita Grosso from ADEN, who is gonna dive us into the generalities of HARP project. Second is Diego Menegon from EURAC, who is gonna present us what is the methodology for the existing heating appliances in buildings, which is the main target of the project. Edsit and Gregorio from the Spanish consumer representative is gonna give us the consumers aspect of the national campaigns that we perform throughout the project. Lastly, we run different policy scenarios for the adoption of the scheme in the existing buildings in quite a number of member states. And this will be presented by Marco Calderoni from R2M. And eventually we're gonna wrap up the meeting with a conversation among speakers and answering the Q&A moderated by me in a round table. So this is the agenda, and now I will give the floor to Rui with the next slides, and enjoy the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marco, and thank you also for the Build Up portal team for hosting us. This is going to be a very brief overview of the project that ADEN was delighted to coordinate with quite a comprehensive consortium. We basically had the chance to interact with 18 partners from different countries and also associations at the Europe level. This was a 3 years project. We expected to reach 1.2 million consumers. And we expected actually that 10,000 of those consumers were actually motivated to replace their heating equipments. The role that we had for the path for the energy efficiency, in buildings is basically the topics that we see here. Many of these, of course, are known to you, and we also had in mind the EPBD, the renovation wave, the long-term renovation strategies, also the focus on nearly zero energy buildings, and more recently the Repower EU. All of these were key sources of information and guidance for all the actions that we have done during the past 3 years. Also taking in consideration the current status, we had a chance to deep dive in what happens at the EU level, and this is just a few figures. We know now that heating and hot water represents 80% of the energy demand at the EU households. Also, 60% of heating stock consists of inefficient boilers, class C or lower. And except from Germany, consumers are not informed about efficiency in their installed heating systems. Only Germany has a labeling scheme for existing appliances that provided specific information. And typically the consumer's relation is what we know. If the systems work, then everything is okay, everything is well. If there's an issue, then the consumers wants to quickly take decisions to replace their equipment in case of failure. One of the good things is that we know that consumers already take into consideration the energy label. Nevertheless, we found that when acquiring a new equipment, 70% of the consumers typically go for the same technology they had installed before, and 43% of consumers think that their house does not allow an installation of a different heating solution. Also, 28% doesn't know other heating technologies, and 25% of those consumers usually don't have time or availability to look more for information. So this was a useful insight that came out also from the research. And so the HARP goal was actually to motivate individuals to plan the replacement of their typically old and outdated fossil appliances. And we try to promote the consumers to know more about their current system and also to plan the potential replacements with more efficient solutions using a tool that they know very well, the energy label, as an instrument to communicate the energy efficiency. The HARP's approach basically touched on 5 topics, all with this umbrella of the energy efficiency scale. And so we went through awareness, raising the consumer's interest on the heating topic. We also made some quantification on the labeling for the existing heating systems. We provided also an overview of solutions to guide consumers, an analysis of benefits, to provide information not only about energy savings, but also other type of benefits, and also the motivation to replace, extending the information also to professionals and incentives. The HARP's activities, and we will hear from a couple of them in the next presentations, focused on the consumer behavioral change, also on an analysis of the markets offering solutions, an analysis of co-benefits, the development of labeling methodologies specifically for the existing heating appliances. We also develop an online application for consumers and professionals, develop a materials toolbox with different solutions for both consumers and professionals. We had a chance to do 2 heating season communications, and we also developed some policy integration scenarios. In terms of HARP results, those were quite interesting at the end. We managed to reach almost 9 million consumers out of those 1.5 million expected. Around 35,000 energy labels were issued for existing heating systems, and around 17,000 simulations for more efficient solutions were based. We targeted specifically 10,000 consumers, but we managed to reach almost 20,000 that were motivated actually to change their equipment. And also concerning professionals, we had a chance to reach 135,000 professionals on average, and a chance to train more than 1,000 of those experts. At the end, we also came out with some policy integration scenarios that we identified that were key for the next steps in terms of harmonization of existing system labeling schemes with new ones, basically the voluntary and the compulsory ones. Also the reinforcements of the European product database, EPREL, as this is becoming quite relevant as a huge database that has all the information of heating appliances. Also focus on maintenance procedures for heating appliances is becoming more and more relevant in terms of assuring safety and full operation of systems. Reinforce the link with the PPD, especially on harmonizing methodologies and labeling regulations. One-stop shops and renovation passports also play quite an important role in terms of motivating the consumers. And finally, when it comes to energy efficiency incentives, also the support to the energy transition based on replacement of old and inefficient heating appliances is actually quite relevant at this specific moment. So this was a very brief overview of the HARP project. I invite you all to go through the website of the project at retrofit.eu, and we'll be glad also to take any specific questions during the sessions or later on at this website email at harp@aden.pt. So thank you for your attention.
Good morning, I'm Diego Menegon. Today I will present the labeling methodology. I will give an overview, all the data, the validation process is published in the HARP internet site. Okay, sorry. Yeah, the methodology has been developed inside the project HARP and is the first step of the HARPA tool. The labeling proposed is voluntary and its aim is to inform the final user about the inefficiency of the old appliance. For this, we followed the European regulation, and the labeling generated through ARPA, it's only recalling what is the official label. The label has been developed for a final user and for a professional user. Later, I will present the difference between the two versions. So the workflow that we followed for the development of the methodology is the following one. At first, we analyzed the existing labeling schemes, where in Europe there are present, as mentioned before, one mandatory label in Germany and some other voluntary labeling scheme that has been proposed as with the same purpose of HARP, to inform the consumer. Starting from this analysis, we developed the methodology to label all the space heating appliance and the water heaters introduced in the market before the implementation of the European regulation, the 811 of 2013 for the space heating appliance, and the 812 of 2013 for the water heaters. Then, since the old appliances are working since a long time in a real case, we introduced and we consider also a degradation factor to consider the appliance aging. And this has been done in cooperation with the heating industry and considering the regular maintenance of the appliance. The validation has been carried out over about 5,000 appliances, and we also test in laboratory 5 old appliances. At first, the first 2 limits that we had to address are the following one. If we want to inform the final user and let him to calculate by himself the labeling, we were aware that the final user is not aware of the meaning of some calculation inputs. And because the user is used to know the energy label, the energy class, but doesn't know what is behind that. And sometimes also for old appliance, some values cannot be retrieved from datasheet or from the appliance books, because the old appliance has been introduced in the market looking to different standards, and therefore what is needed for calculating the label according to the regulation that is in force now maybe were not foreseen by previous regulation. So considering this limit, we validate the methodology, developing at first a simplified input selection for the final user, and we defined default values for the final user. And these default values has been used also in the case that data is not available. The default values has been defined looking to a European standard, and also from market analysis of different products. Okay, so just a slide to show which is the process of calculation. So at first, depending from the type of user, if it's the final user, we ask for a really simplified input. If it's a professional user, we ask for detailed and technical inputs. Then the calculation is the same. And as output, we give the efficiency of the appliance and also the energetic class of the appliance. The efficiency is used in the HARP tool for presenting the different economic benefits of retrofits, but can be also used by the professional for calculating it by himself. So since the label of the whole appliance needs to be compliant to the actual regulation, the calculation is the same, as I mentioned before, for the new products. The only thing that we added for space heating appliance and for water heaters is the degradation coefficient that consider the age of the appliance. When we analyzed the different situation in the different countries, we noticed that not in all the European countries, the maintenance and the efficiency check of the heating appliance was mandatory by law, and therefore we consider two cases. One, when the user is performing the normal maintenance of the appliance, and one when the maintenance is not performed or is poor. And we can see that for the different typologies of heating system, we can have a different degradation. One example can be a gas boiler. With a normal maintenance after 25 years, the efficiency is degraded by the 89% almost. If the maintenance is not performed, the efficiency will degrade to the 70%. And this was developed, as I mentioned before, collecting data from the manufacturers and also with a literature review on the aging effect on the heating appliances. The representation of the boilers for space heating appliance has been done according to the European classification. So the user has to select if it's a standard boiler, it's a low temperature boiler or condensing. And we validated considering 4,600 models built since 1972. And we consider gas and oil boilers that cover the biggest part of the share of installed space heating appliance. Then to the water heaters, we consider different typology of water heaters. So gas storage water heaters, gas instantaneous water heaters, electric storage, and electric instantaneous water heaters. In that case, the number is lower, but still relevant. We validated the methodology on 400 appliances. In this case, we didn't have the possibility to collect data of really old appliances, but we got the possibility of considering appliance of 15 years and go after the threshold of 10 years. In average, comparing the simplified version for the final user and the detailed version for the professional user, we obtain a 5% of deviation. Yeah, just to conclude, we develop a labeling methodology for existing space heating appliance and water heaters. The methodologies are compliant to the European regulation, and we consider the two versions, one for the final user and one detailed for the professional user. The methodologies has been validated considering about 5,000 appliances, and we test also in lab 5 old appliances. And we had a deviation between the two versions of about 3% as average deviation. The single deviation on single product in any case was in a 10% boundary. Thank you for the attention, and now I will leave the word to Estesian.
Okay, we are having some technical difficulties, so I will ask Marco Calderoni to go through his presentation. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Good morning. My name is Marco Calderoni. I'm working at Artfam Solution, which is an innovation consulting company. And in the HARP project, we've been responsible for the policy part of the work. So in summary, this means that we've been capturing what was going on, pardon me, in each country. We try to draw conclusions for the potential adoption of this methodology in other member states and possibly even at the European level. So now what we did was first of all understanding from the high level, let's say what were the motivations and actually who initiated the process in every country. And so in general, we understood that, and which is quite obvious probably, that either the process is started by public sector, by the public sector, or by the private sector. But now more in detail, when it's the public sector, it's usually energy agencies. When it's the private sector, it's usually industrial associations. And by industrial associations, I'm referring to associations of heating appliances, or in particular solar thermal appliances, but you see industrial associations. Then when it comes to the main recipients, so whom are we targeting, or are they targeting with the methodology to label installed heating appliances? It is quite diverse. So in some cases, it is the end users. And so those who will then decide to replace their heating system. In some cases, it's professionals, main installers. And in a couple of cases, it's national or local authorities, let's say national, who are providing incentives. And I will go more into detail in the next slides. Now, I tried to summarize what happened in each country. We have 5, if I'm not wrong, participating country, 1 slide for each. So first of all, on the top of the slide, you can see what was existing before HARP started. And in France, they already have a methodology, a bit more simplified compared to the HARP one, but it was already in place. It was thought for professionals, so installers mainly, and did not, let's say, consider domestic hot water. So it was only about space heating. Now, it was initiated by Industrial Association of Heating, so let's say mainly by Uniclima, not only. And it was financed by the Industrial Association itself. So no big costs, but still some costs to cover, of course. Now, after HARP, in principle, they will be replacing the existing methodology called One Etiquette Chaudier, and the new one will be the HARP methodology with also the HARP logos, etc. And it will be called more or less the same, just adding chauffage at the end. Now, in parallel, Uniclima and the other partners at Énergie d'Avenir are trying to get the support, the endorsement by the French government, particularly through the Directorate General for Energy and Climate. And we will see that this is quite common in all the countries where everything has been initiated by the private sector. They are also trying to get some support by the government. Okay, here we are now with Portugal. In Portugal, there was no existing tool, no methodology in place before HARP was initiated. ADEN, which is the project coordinator and also responsible for our activities in Portugal, was one of the initiators of this project. So the proposal, we got funded, and the main idea is to build a framework, complete framework to offer, let me say, as a package to the government to be adopted. And and they succeeded more or less. They will probably obtain more in the near future, but at present the methodology is there, translated in everything, endorsed by ADEN through several of their websites. One very interesting, let's say, idea of ADEN is to use this methodology to select and prioritize incentives requests. So currently, first come, first serve. In the future, it may be, let's say, the fact that an applicant receives or not the incentive, or to what extent his request is satisfied, may depend on the energy class of his existing device, and of course the less efficient should be prioritized. Another channel ADEN is exploring is the so-called one-stop shop. This is something the European Commission is pushing for in each member state. One-stop shop for renovation activities. Me as an end user, I should be able to easily go on a website and find all the information I need to, understand how bad my current house is, whom I could ask to make an intervention, which interventions should be prioritized, etc. So this is Portugal. Next is Italy, if I'm not wrong. Yes. So Italy had a methodology, actually still is a methodology initiated by the Industrial Association for Heating, Asothermica, also part of the project. It does not concern domestic hot water. It is being applied on voluntary basis by installers when they do regular maintenance on the heating system. And again, as happened in France, the budget came from the Industrial Association itself, so from Asothermica and some other partners. Now, in the future, HARP will be replacing the so-called Etichetta Energetica, the previous methodology, and Asothermica is also seeking for public endorsement, and because the methodology has been developed by, let's say, partly public research institute, URAC, just explain the methodology. And because it is already endorsed by ENEA, which is our National Energy Agency, part of the project, Assotermica considers that it will be easier for the government to, endorse this methodology. Okay, next comes Spain. Spain also had a very simplified, though, methodology, not very much applied. It was basically based on the year of installation, so very simplified, not very much used, as I said. The HARP app and methodology has, of course, been translated also to Spanish. Now, the tries we made with the National Energy Agency of Spain were not successful, mainly because we in HARP consider, our methodology considers not only renewable energy systems, whereas IDEA wants to support only RES systems, and they complained that we didn't consider air-to-air heat pumps. But at the regional level, we're managing, or actually we managed to get the endorsement from a local energy agency in Extremadura. Next comes okay, for some reason I cannot move forward. Okay, next comes Germany. Germany is the only country in Europe where a methodology and the labeling system is in place and is mandatory through chimney sweepers who do regular maintenance of the heating systems. So it is therefore meant for professionals. It doesn't consider domestic hot water. One strong point of this methodology is it is connected to the national database of heating devices, which in Germany is very, very well populated with basically all the devices on the market. This makes, of course, the rating, the inputting of data simpler. And nevertheless, this methodology didn't turn out to trigger a lot of heating replacements. This is, let's say, one of the conclusions the German partners came to. Now, what will happen in the future? Germany will continue using the current methodology, although HARP's methodology is more complete, for example, because it also covers domestic hot water. So it might happen in the future that Germany decides to exploit in some way the HARP methodology. And one option which DENA, the German Energy Agency, part of the project, is considering is individual renovation passports, which is also something the European Commission is pushing for. Before I conclude, just to mention that we also explored the feasibility of implementing the HARP methodology in two countries which are not in the HARP consortium, so they don't get resources, but they showed interest. One is Poland. The main motivation is to avoid that end users choosing or replacing the energy system select simply the most advantageous one because incentives are higher. So it's similar to the motivation of ADEN in Portugal, if you will. What they did is translating the app into Polish, adapt to local conditions. And they are trying now to make this application be used by the incentive providers, so national public bodies, to rank again the priority, let's say, of single requests. Greece, here the promoter, sorry, I forgot to mention that in Poland the promoter was also a private association, the one of heating device manufacturers and importers, so they mainly import heating appliances from outside Poland. In Greece, it was the Greek Solar Thermal Association to trigger everything. The motivation was mainly to inform the end users. So this is related to or targeting end users to provide them with, let's say, high level or good level and, if possible, unbiased information. They also translated the app into Greek and adapt to local conditions. So that's it for, let's say, the story of HARP. And now, if I manage, I will jump to the conclusions. Okay, here we are. So let's trying to summarize. Here I put again exactly the same table you saw in the first slide, and now with the flags. So you see energy agencies are in the center of the process in Germany, in Portugal. Private associations are in the center of the process in Italy, France, Poland, and Greece. Then when it comes to who are the main recipients, we have 3 countries. Oops. Yeah, we have some delay in the slides, unfortunately. Okay. We have 2 cases where the target are also agencies providing incentives, and we have 3 countries where the main beneficiaries or targeted subjects are professionals, so main installers. I forgot to add Spain here, my bad, but this is because they managed to get interesting results at the very end of the project. So in principle, in Spain, it is also a private initiative, and the main beneficiaries or targeted subjects are professionals. Last slide with conclusions. First of all, as mentioned, the first to adopt such a labeling mechanism was Germany. Their experience shows that making the labeling mandatory does not necessarily lead to expected impact. So it doesn't need to be mandatory, although it can be, of course. Industry-driven approaches seem to have a good potential, and mainly because it's simpler. So it's lighter. You don't need to, to make laws, to make decrees. You don't need to wait with all the inertia the public system has. Of course, you don't make it mandatory, so you have to rely on the initiative of some installers. But excuse me, as said, as you saw in the last slide, many countries chose this approach. Future scenarios, we have seen that already 2 countries showed interest. We are providing feedbacks to the European Commission, which may or not in the future decide to introduce such a mechanism through regulations, as happened with eco-design and energy labeling regulation, for example. But I wouldn't say I consider this as a very likely decision. I think it might happen if more and more countries decided, even through private initiative, to adopt such a labeling mechanism. So we cannot exclude it. I personally would be in favor, but there are several channels through which the European Commission could decide to introduce, maybe not necessarily at mandatory level, such approaches, incentive mechanisms, future recast of the European Building Performance Directive, digital building logbooks is a hot topic, one-stop shop for building renovation. And I think that's it. There are many messages one can communicate to end users and installers regarding the benefits of replacing the existing appliance by a more efficient new one. And those are not only economic, but also related to health, improved value of the house. Okay, it's economic. But you see, this is, let's say, the general framework. And that's it. Thank you for your attention. And I leave the floor now. I don't know if it's Etienne, if she managed to get in.
No, hi Marco, me again. Etienne actually has some difficulties, so probably she couldn't make it. Yeah, it's a pity. Anyway, we can jump to the last, to the round table. I can provide some very general information about the consumers aspect in HARP. So the consumers has been involved over 2 heating campaigns that has been run in over the 2 winter season, and it touched bases in 3 countries, which were Spain, Portugal, and France. And yeah, the main takeaways for that activities are basically that the development of the adapted material for consumers is very relevant for for the country per se, so it needs to be really adapted at the national level. The engagement is much better through the organization of webinars in order to fully engage end users for heating appliances. Of course, it's an higher impact via paid campaigns for both consumers and professionals. And some information about incentives are not very clear because they are fragmented over countries, and also within the same country there are different subsidies that are currently present at national and regional level. Anyway, further information will be sent via email with the relevant presentation of all the speakers, including the consumers one. All right, let's jump to the question. So we have some question for all the speakers. I will start with Aden, with Rui. The question is related to the achievement of the targets. So how can HARP contribute to the achievement of the heating decarbonization targets in EU and also at national level?
Thank you, Marco, for the question. Well, the heating decarbonization actually is embedded in the whole building decarbonization as it expected. As we have seen also by the figures presented in presentation, 80% of the energy demand in households is actually related with heating. And so this brings quite an opportunity to use heating as the main decarbonization way. And perhaps I would highlight three typical actions that could be done. Well, the first one, using the first energy efficiency principle, is to reduce energy demands, and specifically the heating demand. Second would be to choose efficient equipments, the most efficient solutions available. And third, complement it in parallel with renewable solutions. On-site, individual systems, centralized, well, it depends on the situation. For the first case on reducing demand, well, I think the new EPBD will definitely continue to address this issue and reinforce the need for building renovation. We're talking about insulation, changing windows, and so also endorsing these on the national long-term renovation strategies and future building renovation plans, and specifically targeting the worst performing buildings, also buildings where energy poverty is also highlighted, and also whenever possible promoting deep renovation. So EPBD definitely will provide a boost there. Concerning the second point on inefficient equipments, there's where actually HARP position itself. So in here, the idea is actually to continue using the HARP's messages in terms of promoting the change of older equipments, providing tools for consumers, the one also coming from the HARP project, also allowing that these tools are aligned and embedded with national policies, with incentives, with financial schemes that are coming out and really bringing to the consumers the added value that goes beyond just energy savings when choosing the right equipments to replace the older ones. And third, the promotion of renewables. So in this specific case, we also try to highlight and align our strategies with the use of renewable sources, being solar, biomass, geothermal, or others. These are becoming quite relevant in the current context, as we all know. And so tackling these three traditional areas on the heating specifically will definitely contribute to the energy transition in the building sector.
Thanks, Rui, to give us all the three aspects in HARP. Now let's jump to the technical and the methodology aspect in the tool. So there's a question to Diego from Remark. What, in your opinion, are the key parameters in the methodologies for the existing heating appliances? Thanks.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the question. I didn't went in this detail in my presentation. So as I mentioned, we have two possibilities. One for the simplified version for the final user and one detailed version. We were aware that some parameters in the professional version can be not available. Therefore, the most important parameters in the calculation for the space heating appliance are the typology of the boiler, because the different typology will lead to a different efficiency, and also the installation year, because through the years there was an evolution on the performance. So more older is the appliance, and most probably more inefficient is the appliance, but also more older is the appliance, and higher degradation due to the aging. So these are the two most important things. And at the same time, for the water heaters, also for the final user, we ask for the number of inhabitants that to define the size of the water heaters and the proper tapping profile that will bring to the label of the water heaters. All the other parameters are, of course, important in the calculation, but the validation phase was done just to, let's say, reduce the possible deviation in case of these parameters are not known.
Thank you, Diego. I think we can finally rely on a stable connection from Zitzen. So I gonna ask you a question, but feel free to develop it further in case you want to provide the audience more insight on the consumer's perspective. So the question I have is how consumers consider energy label while making a new purchase for their own heating appliance.
Thank you, Marco. Hope you can hear me. Well, consumers actually know the energy label and they trust it, but it's not the main trigger when they are going to purchase a new device. So that means we have to make an effort for them to understand which are the rest of the other benefits, the co-benefits, when they are changing to an efficient system. That's why we have to work during the HARP project to let them know first what they have installed, and then what different advantages they could get on savings, on energy savings, CO2 savings, and economic savings. And we were also working on the co-benefits as the comfort in the households and other benefits that they could get from renewing the systems. The problem with decision making is that consumers do not think or plan their retrofitting unless they get their devices stuck and they stop working. That means that they will go on a rush to buy and purchase a new system, studying and checking and being able to compare. So that's why we came here. We try and plan this decision, and we provide all the information from what they've got installed, what they may get, and which are the benefits when they try and take and make this replacement.
Thank you for sharing the consumer's perspective. And I have a final question to Marco. Which are your main takeaways from all the policy scenarios run over the member states levels, and how replicable are those actions in the other countries?
Okay, yes, I will be mainly summarizing the conclusions and reinforce a couple of messages. So main reinforcement is in the quantification. So I think the approach is very replicable. So there is a high replicability simply because it's, as I said, it's a relatively simple procedure, especially if it is adopted by the private sector on voluntary basis, of course. This is, I think, the difference. I'm not in favor in general of having everything made privately. That's not the point. But as I said, the inertia of a public system is higher, but especially the decision process is more tricky. Whereas if the industrial associations start on voluntary basis and the approach turns out to be impactful, then a public endorsement is likely to follow. So this is my personal view, having studied a little bit what was going on in the various countries, and the endorsement. It would be best, I think, if it was at the national level, out of question. But the good news is that it can also start at the regional level, and this may again reinforce what has been reinforced before. So then lead to a national adoption. So a high replicability at the member state level, let's say at the national level in general, even outside of the European Union. Where those countries where a strong industry is present, so including the manufacturing, not only the reselling, are more likely, I think, to succeed because the industrial associations are stronger. Simply, they weight more in terms of jobs, turnover, etc. Now, talking about the EU level, so let's say European Commission to possibly decide to adopt the mechanism. As I said, I don't think this is very likely. It might be the case, but I guess it will be the case if in many countries this process I just explained was to happen, and then probably the European Commission would basically have to take a position. But again, it mustn't be a mandatory position, so it can be still left to the member states, I think. But for sure, the impact can be high and has shown to be quite high in the participating countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. I gonna conclude this roundtable. So first of all, thanks everybody, to the speakers and to the audience to join today. As a final remark, this webinar has been recorded, and the slides will be shared later on next to the recording via email. And I would like also to thank again BuildUp for hosting us and sharing the very latest results of HARP project. So thank you for your attention, and I wish you a nice day, everybody.
Bye-bye.